freshman in high school, and I remember thinking that I wanted to do everything that I saw my friends doing, that culture told me to do, music, TV. I wanted to date, I wanted to party, I wanted to try it all. And so I had never had a boyfriend at this point, but I just wanted to do everything. And so I was invited to this lock-in at our high school through Young Life for a New Year's Eve party, and I remember thinking, well, I'll just meet, a boy there. And actually what ended up happening is this man started speaking, and he started talking about having a relationship with Jesus. And I thought it was strange at first because I didn't really understood what that meant. And so having a relationship with Jesus, it actually was everything that I was looking for, everything that I thought would satisfy my heart, everything I wanted. And I remember just crying, thinking, wow, I've finally found everything that I wanted to fulfill my heart. And not too long after that, I actually heard the Lord say to me, Sarah, I have a promise for you. Will you trust me? And that promise is a husband, and I will bring him to you at the right time. And so as I grew with my relationship with the Lord, I wrote down this list of everything that I wanted in a husband, and I prayed and I said, God, this is everything that I want. And then as I went through high school, people would make fun of me, call me a nun, because it seems strange to wait for your husband, and especially as a teenager. And then as I transitioned into college, I thought, well, maybe I'll meet my husband then. And I remember people even making fun of me as I was going through college just because I was still waiting. And I would meet people, but the Lord would always say no. And then I thought, well, for sure, at least out of college, I'll meet somebody. And then by the time I hit to age 25, I finally got so frustrated, and I just prayed. And I remember my pastor saying, Sarah, why don't you just pray and ask the Lord for everything that you want again and keep trusting him, because obviously he made you a promise. So I wrote out this entire list again of everything that I wanted, and I prayed. And 2 days later, one of our youth kids actually came up to me and had a dream. And they said, Sarah, I really feel like the Lord is saying that somebody's coming into your life soon. He's taller than you. He has dark hair. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm trusting, but yeah, God, we want you to do that. And then again, this lady at our church came up to me and said, God gave me this picture of this man of dark hair, and he's coming. And then somebody else said the same thing. So I thought, okay, Lord, you're going to bring somebody, and it's going to be soon.
When I went into high school, my story is a little different. I actually got into a lot of trouble my freshman year. I really enjoyed playing sports and fighting and hanging out with older guys. So I would hang out with a lot of the older guys my freshman year. And I soon found out from these older guys that who I was as a man was directly reflective of how many women I had, and just being able to do whatever I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. So I became really rebellious, and I actually dropped out of high school, and I'd sold drugs and dated quite a few women throughout those few years of my life. When I turned 18, I realized I didn't like where my life was going, and I wanted to do something completely different with my life. So I started going to church, and I started going to youth ministry. And one of the first times that I was at youth ministry, a guy named Jim Anderson came to our church, and he basically challenged me as a man. He challenged my manhood, he challenged how I thought, and he basically told me that real men will wait for their wives, and they will fight for purity, and they will fight for their future spouse. So at that moment, I decided that was what I was going to do. I was going to fight as best as I could for my future wife and for purity.
The first time I ever saw Caleb, I was helping with our youth ministry at our church. And in walks this recently graduated from high school homie with bling and a backwards hat and basketball shoes, who definitely was a slight flirt. And I had just come back from recently graduating from college. I was working in the business world. I lived in Seattle, where most men either looked like they were from REI or GQ models. So seeing this homie, I definitely wasn't sure about him.
Let's see, the first time I saw Sarah, I think it was right when I got back from New York, and I had just spent multiple months in the Bronx and in Harlem playing basketball every day and trying to sell them security systems. So I wasn't really looking for a wife at the time. But when I saw her, I thought she was really, really pretty. I thought she was super gorgeous, but she seemed really closed off and super serious all the time. I wasn't really feeling it.
Over the next few years, I started to get to know Caleb because he was volunteering at the same youth ministry that I was volunteering in. And I noticed that he had potential to be a great leader. I would hear him speak and lead different events, and so I knew he had that potential. But he still felt like a younger brother to me. I mean, he was more of that like fun, we don't always have to be responsible type of leader, and I'm the we're gonna be responsible all the time type of leader. And so as time progressed, we eventually went on this trip to Washington, D.C., my church and I. And the church had said, okay, guys, follow the girls, make sure they're not left alone on the subway. But I noticed that Caleb started following me a lot more than the other girls, so I could tell he was somewhat interested, but I was still not interested.
Over the next few years, I started to get to know Sarah more. We were doing youth ministry together, and I was really amazed at how great of a communicator she was and how much the girls really looked up to her, but I never really thought much about pursuing a relationship with her. I was way more interested in overseeing the games and hanging out and having fun with the kids, and she seemed pretty serious and wanting the agenda always to go the right way, and so I wasn't really interested in her. I mean, I thought she was cute, and when we went to Washington, D.C., I realized how amazing I thought she was, but other than that, I wasn't really interested in her at the time. There was really no point.
3 years ago, the Lord had asked me to transition out of youth ministry just because there were some things that the Lord really wanted to work on my heart in. And I had moved in with the Andersons and transitioned out of living at Heidi and Trevor's house. And so I was traveling a lot more, and I hadn't seen Caleb in a while.
Sarah stopped working at the youth ministry for a while, so we just kind of stopped communicating. And one night I'm sitting in my office. Sarah is randomly on my mind. I'm at my office and I'm doing personality tests on every one of my friends and my staff, and Sarah just won't leave my mind. So after a while I'm thinking, well, I know she's not interested in me. We haven't talked for a long time, so I'll just text her and see if she needs prayer or something. She's not leaving my mind. So I ended up texting her, and we started having a brief conversation just about personality types.
And I'm thinking, this is so random. I haven't heard from you in over a year. You asked me if I need prayer, and you asked me what my personality is. So then I knew he had to be up to something. So I proceeded to ask him, so what's your personality type? And then once he told me, I Googled the two together because I knew he had to be up to something. And so the first sentence that comes up on the Google screen, why these two personality types are perfect for each other. And I thought,
About 2 days after that, I'm up at my pastor's houses and I'm hanging out with Pastor Joe and Jessica and Trevor. And they start asking me questions if I'm interested in a girl, and I started cracking some jokes and saying, I was looking at my personality type, and apparently the only girl that would even work with my personality type is Sarah, but that's never gonna happen. And we were just kind of joking about that back and forth, and Pastor Joe and Jessica had previously thought that me and Sarah should get to know each other about 3 years previous, and I was too intimidated and didn't really feel like pursuing somebody that wasn't interested in me. So they encouraged me to get to know Sarah as a friend, and I texted Sarah and wanted to become friends with her. But she sat down with me a few days later, and let's just say she made it super clear that she was never going to be interested in pursuing a relationship with me, let alone even being friends.
one day Jessica had asked me out to coffee, and she asked me if I was interested in Caleb, and I said, no, I'm not. So I met with Caleb and made it very clear to him that I was not interested at all. And then Pastor Joe had asked me one day, he said, Sarah, you don't ever have to date this guy, but I think you should just pray and ask the Lord to show you some of the, really good qualities about Caleb. And I always keep my promises, so I decided to pray. And that next Sunday, I heard my pastor say, she said, you always want to speak highly of somebody because you never know if that person's going to be your spouse or not. And I remember thinking, oh man. Okay, so I started praying about Caleb. I started wanting to kind of see if he was different. And all of a sudden, these different friends and people come up to me and say, Sarah, I know you know Caleb, but he's just so different than how he was before. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll get to know him. So I had asked my pastor Trevor, I said, how do you get to know somebody without making it super obvious? And he was like, well, why don't you just show up to stuff that Caleb always goes to? So I started showing up to different events and just observing him from afar without him knowing. And I noticed, yeah, he was different. And so I kind of started talking to him a little bit more. We started texting a little bit more. And then one day, I didn't hear from him for 3 days, and I thought, something's not right. Like, something's not right. And then I realized, I think I'm interested. But I was too nervous to tell him because I just thought he was so rejected from me that he would never be interested in me anymore. So I called Trevor and I was like, Trevor, I think I'm interested in Caleb, but I'm too nervous to tell him because I think he might just say no now. And so Trevor said, okay, I'll go meet with him.
So I went away for 3 days just to pray and figure out what the Lord would maybe have me to do. I didn't really talk to anybody. I just left for 3 days. And when I came back to my house, Pastor Trevor showed up at my house and told me that Sarah really wanted to get to know me. And at first I thought he was kidding, but as we communicated and talked, I was like, you know what, if Michael Jordan shows up to your house and wants to be on your basketball team, you go for it. So if Sarah wants to get to know me, I'm definitely gonna take this girl out to lunch. So we went out to lunch and we talked, and we had a great time. We started just getting along amazingly, and we were just kind of sitting in my car talking, and I just knew instantly. I was like, I'm gonna marry this girl. No matter what it takes, this is a girl that I want to spend the rest of my life with.
So Caleb agreed to get to know me as a friend. And as we started getting to know each other, I realized we have a lot more in common than I ever thought we would. And we want to do the same things. We want to go to travel the same places. Our views on parenting, our views on ministry, everything just lined up. It was so odd to me because I've known him for how many years and never knew any of this stuff. And so as he continued to pursue me, I was pretty upfront with him. And I told him, I said, anybody can be romantic, but I don't need you to do that. I don't need you to buy me flowers. I don't need you to tell me I'm pretty. I want to know your character because I want to know who I would potentially be marrying. And so he did that. And through a series of events, he won my heart. I remember one day I was nervous. It had snowed and I was nervous about driving home, and I had told him that, and randomly he just picked up my snow tires, changed my tires at my lunch break, so when I got off work it was all done and I didn't have to worry about it. And I remember him, just how he would interact with my family and my friends, because all of that was important to me. They all had to like him. It was on my list that I wrote down when I was 25. That was one of the top things that had to happen. And they all just fell in love with him. And even though it took me a while, I realized one day as we were sitting there, he was asking me what I really want to do with my life and how he can be a part of that and how he can help. And I realized, I think I love this guy. And so through that, I fell in love and I want to marry him.
You know, through this process, I have learned so much. I have been forced to grow up in so many ways. I knew immediately that I wanted to marry Sarah, but she wasn't too sure about me. She was kind of intimidated to even jump into a relationship. So I had to really learn how to be soft. I had to learn how to be gentle. I'm still working on that quite a bit, but I've had to learn a lot. I had to learn self-control because she didn't want to even kiss me until the altar. So physically I had to learn a lot of self-control through this process, and it has just truly grew me as a man. She is the most amazing person that I've ever met, and because she's in my life, I feel like I'm a better person and have grown up tremendously. So I'm just so excited to finally be able to marry her.
We want to thank you for coming to our wedding, for partaking in our special day, and for taking the time to hear our story. We hope that you feel more connected to Caleb and I. We want to give a special thanks to Pastor Heidi and Trevor for all of the years that you've discipled us, encouraged us, and helped us become the leaders that we are today. We also want to thank Pastor Jim and Lisa for really pouring into our relationship and helping our marriage grow even more than we could have imagined. And we want to thank Pastor Joe and Jessica because you helped us overcome our fear of really getting to know one another. So with that being said, am I missing anything? Is there anything to add?
No, I think you did pretty good. I've just been waiting 15 months to finally kiss you.